Welcome back to ABC 13 Weather Now. Joining me again is Houston Chronicle meteorologist Justin Ballard. And as forecasts continue to call for an active hurricane season in the Gulf, he's here to highlight the top 5 worst hurricane seasons in Texas and in Houston over the last 15 years. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you for having me. There were only a couple of really notable hurricane seasons, which we'll get to.
Right. So 15 years ago, that takes us back to 2008.
Right.
And
this does not include the 2024 season because it's not started yet.
Not yet. So 2008, that was my first hurricane to experience here in Houston. It was Ike, an unforgettable storm.
What a doozy of a storm to have your first one, your first hurricane experience in Houston be.
Right.
So Ike made landfall in 2008, as you mentioned, as a Category 2. A lot of people don't necessarily realize that it wasn't a quote-unquote major hurricane, but it had some major impacts on southeast Texas and the Houston area.
Absolutely. We can take a map, look at the map. We'll show you the track that Ike took as it worked its way out of the Atlantic and into the Gulf of Mexico. This was just a bruiser of a storm. At one point, it was a Category 4 before it made landfall in Cuba, and then it came in as a Category 2, and a lot of folks said it's just a Category 2, but it was a massive hurricane, and all of that size, that large wind field, spread a ton of wind and water towards the Gulf Coast, and we had one of the worst storm surges since the 1900 hurricane. And
there's been a notable shift since 2008 to focus on less on the magnitude and more on the impact. And, you know, you see why with Ike, certainly, in 2008.
Yeah, it rewrote the whole system that we use to communicate the hazards of hurricanes. Now we've kind of divorced away the storm surge from the scale, and it's strictly, when you hear that category, that's just wind speeds. It doesn't tell you how high the water is going to get. Okay, so that was 2008, and then we had a quiet spell.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of tropical activity. In fact, we were begging for something in 2011 to help out with the drought. Those storms just fizzled as they made landfall. Then we get to 2017, and it's like the Atlantic just opened up the doorways to hell, and we had Harvey.
And only one hurricane made landfall in Texas, and it was that one. It was Harvey.
Unforgettable.
In 2017 in late August. So, you know, of course, more than 60 inches of rainfall in parts of southeast Texas. Widespread reports of 36 to 48 inches across Houston and Harris County. I was reading this yesterday just as a little refresher. 18 sites reported rainfall of more than 48 inches. The previous record, 48 inches with Allison in 2001.
Yeah.
So just monumental destruction from Harvey, $125 billion, and that's on the kind of conservative side.
And it was a 1-2 punch, right? Because it made landfall as a Category 4 in Rockport and stalled. Right. They had 13 hours of hurricane force winds. We were caught up in the outer rain bands, and that's why the flooding was so devastating here.
And a lot of people forget this. It never really approached more than 100 miles. The center of it never really got more than 100 miles from us in Houston.
Now, no one thought just 2 years later we would have another tropical system that would dump in one night about 30 inches of rain near Houston.
Similar to, you know, Allison.
But that's what happened with Imelda in 2019. Yeah.
So Imelda was another one. It was a big rainmaker. There were some deaths in not just southeast Texas, but in Houston and Harris County from that as well. Another very costly tropical storm. Again, on the heels just 2 years later after Hurricane Harvey.
And so that's why we have to respect the water. Flooding kills more people than the winds by far. It's like 90% of fatalities in tropical systems are from water, from drowning.
And it's a reminder that you don't want to get caught up on tropical storm versus hurricane.
Right, and you got 2 more seasons on there, 2020, 2021. We don't have time to talk about them, but if you go to your article that's now live on the Houston Chronicle, you can read all about it there. And these are important lessons to learn, especially if you're new to southeast Texas.
Which I am.
The way you learn is by studying what's happened in the past and take notes to know this is the kind of thing that we can sometimes get.
Prepare now.
That's right. Justin Ballard, meteorologist from the Houston Chronicle, thank you so much for joining us again today, and I look forward to reading the rest of that article.